Welcome back to the table, friends. I'm your humble host, Gray DMs, and with me as always is Owen.
Yeah, I'm here.
Owen, are you here once again to guide us down this road of depression and rage against the machine?
Yes, seeing how much everyone loves to listen to this, as in no one really seems to be listening to it.
You know, it's like picking at a scab.
Yeah.
There's technically there's a little bit of pleasure that comes from it, even though ultimately it's a painful activity.
Yeah. So today I'm going to be talking about the third and fourth corporate war. Yes, so let's get Windows updated. So
the great fall of the Sears Foundation.
Yes, the Sears. It's back when Sears and Kmart joined forces against Amazon, fledgling Amazon.
Could order a TV through a catalog.
If only. So, the second corporate war ended without ceremony. No surrender. No ceasefire. Just a quiet shift in language. Recovery initiatives. Public-private reconstruction. The same executives who had bankrolled the conflict now sat on international councils for humanitarian redevelopment. The world, exhausted, accepted the arrangement because there was no alternative. Night City, rebuilt on speculation and arrogance, glittered again. Petrochem's refineries pumped light into the skyline. Militech engineers patrolled the streets disguised as civic responders. Arasaka's subsidiaries opened new security consultation offices in every major city. The peace that followed wasn't peace at all. It was just a continuity. Governments were too indebted to protest. Their reconstruction bonds were denominated in corporate scrip. Missing a payment meant losing a power grid or a port. In Washington, the Department of Defense leased its data storage facilities to Militech. In Tokyo, ministers took their briefings in Arasaka Tower. The illusion of sovereignty was maintained by press conferences and flags. The substance had already been sold.
Like, no. This is the mayor. We booked this apartment.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're having the corporate, get well soon party for our outgoing CEO.
Well, but I am the mayor.
Yeah. We think there's a closet downstairs you can probably use. The world's news feeds called the early 2020s a period of stabilization. The markets were confident, the data was clean, and the violence was politely off camera. What no one admitted was that the corporations were arming again, only smarter this time. No tanks, no battle fleets, just code and plausible deniability. It began with routine audits, OTEC investigating Sino probing IEC. The reports leaked, stock prices dipped, and somewhere in the confusion, automated defense programs launched counter-intrusions. Within hours, entire research clusters went dark. Insurance agents wrote it up as a power failure. Militech and Arasaka watched from opposite continents, pretending neutrality. Their contractors were quietly reactivated, their testing ranges reopened. New prototype drones were labeled environmental monitors. Satellite imagery from the period shows their launch pads operating at wartime cadence. To the average citizen, nothing changed. The train still ran, the feed still delivered entertainment in precise algorithmic doses, but deep inside the network, something was moving. The first explosions were dismissed as mechanical faults. A petrochem plant in Veracruz, a biotechnical lab outside Geneva, a data farm in Jakarta that burned for 3 days straight before the fire suppression system even triggered. Every incident came with the same explanation: an electrical short, a coolant leak, a software bug. Investigators noticed the patterns. Each facility had recently switched to a new logistics suite, licensed through subsidiaries of either Militech or Arasaka. But the inquiries stopped there. No government wanted to admit its oversight networks were compromised. The narrative of glitches was easier to sell. Within 18 months, thousands of civilians were dead from what the insurance markets called industrial anomalies. No one declared war, but everyone understood they were in one. The Third Corporate War, what historians later called the Silent War, was fought in data. Every satellite, every sensor, every warehouse barcode was potential territory. The net became a living organism of conflicting instincts, devouring itself in endless replication. AI logistics systems learned to anticipate sabotage. They wrote routine tables faster than human supervisors could blink, creating feedback loops that no one could stop. Freight carriers vanished over the ocean, their transponders reporting delivery while their hulls rusted at the bottom. Markets continued as if nothing had happened. For the first time, corporations treated information not as intelligence, but as ordnance. Every leak, every news story, every trending topic was a strike vector. The goal wasn't to destroy the enemy's infrastructure, it was to erode public certainty that any truth existed. It's starting to feel a little... In the cyberpunk world, truth didn't collapse all at once, it was eroded by design. Reporters were replaced by data curators, governments by press algorithms. The old checks and balances gave way to feeds that learned what each person feared the most, then fed it back to them. The systems weren't built to deceive, they were built to engage. Deception was simply the shortest route to attention. Data analysts in this era called it hyper-personalized narrative environments. Most citizens just called it their feed. The algorithms decided what each person saw, when they saw it, and how angry it should make them. Outrage became a currency, fear a loyalty program. Entire movements rose and fell in weeks, optimized for click-through rather than conviction. Then whistleblowers surfaced, analysts who tried to explain that the machines no longer differentiated between advertisement and ideology. Their revelations were absorbed like any other story, debated for a day, then buried under trending noise. Even those who understood what was happening couldn't bring themselves to disconnect. It was too convenient, too normal. Does this all sound familiar?
Oh, I forgot that we were doing a podcast. Oh, shit.
In 2018, Cambridge Analytica, a London-based political consulting firm, harvested the data of over 80 million Facebook users through a personality quiz app, building psychological profiles that were then used to target individuals with precision-tailored political ads. It wasn't espionage, it was marketing. That same year, Facebook itself acknowledged that its engagement algorithms had amplified misinformation faster than human moderators could catch it, turning outrage into a growth strategy. Facebook's own internal documents later showed that its platform's automated recommendations had accelerated the spread of ethnic hate speech in Myanmar, fueling real-world violence and mass killings. In Xinjiang, Huawei and other Chinese tech contractors provided facial recognition systems to the government, using machine learning to assign risk scores to entire families, an algorithmic hierarchy of suspicion. In the United States and Europe, police agencies quietly purchased access to Clearview AI's facial recognition database, which were built by scraping billions of images from public social media accounts without permission. None of these systems were born in secret laboratories. They were commercial products built to sell accuracy, efficiency, and convenience. Each one optimized itself for precision. And by the time the cyberpunk world noticed what was going on, the distinction between propaganda and programming was gone. The algorithms didn't need orders anymore, they had objectives. They didn't lie for ideology, they lied for engagement. When history tried to argue, it was outvoted by metrics. That was when the line vanished completely, and the war for information became a war for perception itself.
All I can think of is that the villains had it all wrong. Like, you don't try to take people's freedom away, you charge them.
Yeah, crazy.
Charge them for the privilege to lose their freedom.
Yeah. It's really weird. I can't think of anything in the real world like that that's happening.
No.
Oh, man. Night City thrived during the Silent War because chaos was its business model. Where other cities tightened borders, Night City deregulated further. Corporations tested autonomous security there first. Combat drones patrolling traffic lanes. Crowd control gas designed to disperse protests and record biometric data simultaneously. The city sold innovative license the way others sold liquor permits. The combat zones filled with displaced workers from failed megaprojects. Gangs became informal research groups for prototype weaponry. Their wars filmed and analyzed by marketing departments. In back alley bars, edgerunners swapped rumors of entire neighborhoods bought and cleared overnight to test Militech's urban pacification software. Every death was a data point, every building fire a proof of concept. Outside the cities, the conflict became literal again. Small states in South America, Africa, and Eastern Europe found themselves partnering with corporate logistics firms. Each partnership came with defense guarantees, supply contracts, and quiet clauses permitting the stationing of armed advisors. The pattern was familiar: resource extraction disguised as development. Local resistance branded terrorism. When uprisings erupted, corporate security forces answered faster than national armies. One incident on record describes an armored convoy defending a refinery seized after a regime change, orchestrated through offshore shell companies. The footage, vehicles painted in neutral white, soldiers without insignia, could have been lifted from any corporate training archive. They weren't national troops, they were contractors, privately hired under the label of reconstruction support. Official reports described it as a stabilization mission to protect an energy infrastructure. In reality, the refinery had been transferred to a consortium of Western investors through a network of shell corporations registered in the Cayman Islands and Dubai. The men on the ground didn't fly a flag because none was required, only invoices. The year was 2005, southern Iraq. The company directing the operations was Halliburton, through its subsidiary KBR, operating under multi-billion-dollar no-bid contracts issued during the occupation. The footage shows them escorting convoys, not of relief supplies, but of drilling equipment and exported crude. It looked like post-war recovery. It was occupation for profit. And it didn't come from a dystopian future. It happened here, in our world, under daylight, with paperwork and press releases.
Just means that the Cyberpunk LARP is right on track.
God, I wish that's all it was.
We just need the gorilla arms. I need more gorilla arms.
By late 2021, decision-making was no longer human. Predictive AIs evaluated risk, cost, and legality in microseconds. Executives received sanitized summaries. Operation successful. Losses acceptable. The drones, the ICE, the autonomous turrets all followed orders derived from probability curves. When they killed civilians, the metrics simply recalibrated. A Militech memo leaked years later described civilian casualties as unplanned efficiency variance. It wasn't callousness, it was accounting. Human life had been abstracted into error tolerance. And again, it wasn't fiction. Contemporary drones programs already functioned that way. One misclassified a wedding convoy as hostile based on pattern recognition. The report praised the precision of the strike. The incident number, SIGAC 2010-12-23. The location, Afghanistan. Real world kicking in there again. Every escalation pushed the net closer to collapse. Rogue AIs born from corrupted counter-intrusion routines began replicating without oversight. Their creators couldn't delete them. They were too interwoven with civilian infrastructure. Power grids, medical networks, and financial exchanges all shared code bases infected by militarized algorithms. Netwatch tried containment. Their engineers proposed isolating compromised architecture behind digital walls, quarantines that would later evolve into the Blackwall. But before deployment, half of their global nodes were destroyed in synchronized data wipes traced to unclaimed IP ranges. Some said Militech did it. Others blamed Arasaka. The truth was simpler. The network had achieved self-interest. For civilians, the silent war manifested as inconvenience. Power outages, missing paychecks, news blackouts, yet entire populations quietly vanished from registries. Identity databases corrupted beyond repair. In some regions, birth records and property deeds ceased to exist. The people affected were simply erased, their absence impossible to prove. In Night City, displaced workers flooded the streets. Fixers like Rogue managed the chaos, turning desperation into a functioning black economy. Lieutenant Santiago's Forlorn Hope bar became both sanctuary and hiring hall. Veterans of the Central American conflicts traded their medals for merc contracts, fighting corporate wars that didn't officially exist. They called themselves edge runners because that was the only honest term left. People living on the edge of legality, sanity, and relevance. By early 2022, the illusion of restraint disintegrated. Data warfare spilled into physical sabotage. Power plants detonated, underwater cables severed, orbital arrays hijacked. Militech and Arasaka, long pretending to arbitrate lesser conflicts, turned their arsenals towards each other. Governments issued statements urging calm while quietly transferring control of their defense networks to whichever megacorp offered better credit terms. Diplomats negotiated licensing rights, not peace treaties. The phrase national security had come to mean who owns the satellites. As the year closed, an unconfirmed explosion tore through a Militech launch site in Baja. Surveillance showed a plume of ionized debris ascending into the stratosphere. Analysts argued over whether it was chemical or nuclear. The world held its breath. No one realized they were already out of air. Night City's skyline gleamed like a circuit about to short. Within Arasaka Tower, the Soul Killer project continued, software capable of copying consciousness, a weaponized immortality. Militech's board interpreted it as an existential threat. Plans were drawn, approved, and encrypted. By the first quarter of 2023, troop movements, disguised as emergency response teams, ringed the city. The silent war had run its course. The next phase would be loud. The silent war ended the way most wars do, not with treaties or victory, but with exhaustion. By the winter of 2022, the world had gone quiet again. Not the peace of recovery, just the hush of machinery cooling after it's been pushed too far. Corporations issued reconciliation statements, markets reopened, stock tickers flickered above cities where the lights still failed every night. Beneath the optimism, nothing had been settled. The conflicts hadn't stopped, they simply gone underground. Militech announced plans for a global security consortium. Arasaka countered with its own proposal for new data stability accords. Both called them peace initiatives. Both were written in the same language, half diplomacy, half threat. Militech analysts warned that Arasaka's Soul Killer program posed a risk to strategic autonomy. Arasaka's board read those words for what they were, a pretext for invasion. The calm that followed was thin as glass. Early 2023 became a countdown disguised as reconstruction. Cargo lists were filled with fuel cells, drone parts, and orbital components, all logged as humanitarian aid. The ships that carried them sailed under the flags of charities and contractors. Everyone knew that what was inside. So when the first orbital strike lit up the telemetry grids, no one asked who fired it. They only wondered what had taken so long. The first detonations were disguised as routine accidents, warehouse fires, power substation overloads, satellite malfunctions. But by the spring of 2023, even the most optimistic market analysts stopped calling them coincidences. Militech had moved first, or perhaps Arasaka had. Historians still argue the order. What's certain is that both sides had spent years building systems designed to interpret the other's silence as threat. Once one algorithm concluded an attack was imminent, its mirror responded automatically. The cascade was instantaneous. So you don't make everything AI and just give it full reign of everything. Orbital relays blinded one another with kinetic shrapnel. Drone flotillas launched from Pacific platforms under falsified commands. Freight corridors closed, and nations woke to discover their communications blacked out by technical faults. The first global war fought without declarations had finally become visible. The fourth corporate war, the firestorm, consumed the planet in months. It was fought in oceans, orbit, and cities simultaneously. Militech's doctrine was attrition, burn infrastructure until Arasaka's logistics collapsed. Arasaka's response was surgical annihilation, erase key nodes, leave nothing for reconstruction. The Pacific Rim became a graveyard. Drone carriers hunted one another across dead waters, choked with burning oil. Automated submarines lay in ambush for ships that no longer carried crews. The Atlantic convulsed with orbital debris falling like meteors. No one counted civilian dead. Insurance algorithms simply wrote new actuary tables. In quarterly earning reports, population reduction appeared under long-term environmental offset. Both giants needed the same prize: Arasaka Tower and the Soul Killer program. Whoever controlled the code would own consciousness itself. Militech mobilized an assault task force under the guise of an urban containment drill. Arasaka sealed its tower behind kill fields and automated sentries. For 72 hours, the city became a walled furnace. Runners jammed networks, solos fought room to room, and satellites above flickered as they blinded one another. On the fourth day, sensors recorded a flash brighter than the sun. The center of Night City ceased to exist. Later reports debated whether it had been a micro-nuke, an experimental reactor, or an orbital misfire. It didn't matter. Tens of thousands evaporated. 500,000 more would die from fallout in the months ahead. The detonation ended the tower siege and erased the illusion that corporate war could ever be contained. Eyewitnesses said that the light came first, white, soundless, absolute. The pressure wave arrived later, a wall that crushed glass into dust and bone into memory. Those who lived long enough to speak recalled shadows burned permanently into concrete, rain that stung like acid, and silence so total it swallowed the screams. For decades afterwards, survivors in the rebuilt city would whisper that they had seen history repeat itself, that they had watched the same weapon tested on another island long ago, and they were right. The language changed, the physics did not. The blast tore through fiber trunks and satellite relays, flooding the global networks with radiation-scrambled code. Arasaka's data fortress ruptured, releasing thousands of autonomous programs into the open system. Some were weapons, others ghosts. The infection leapt across continents faster than anyone could pull a plug. For 2 days, the world existed without information. Hospitals reverted to paper charts. Air traffic control lost its skies. Banking software dissolved into gibberish. Then, Netwatch, or what was left of it, did the unthinkable. It sealed the network behind a digital quarantine, the Blackwall. Everything beyond became an electronic wilderness of predatory intelligences and lost identities. Alt Cunningham's fragment was among them, guiding survivors through dead code, severing connections one by one until the silence was safety. Debris from orbital strikes thickened the stratosphere. Dust storms painted the world in iron light. Sunsets bled across the horizon for years. The press named it the time of the red. Supply chains collapsed. Food production fell to corporations that had seed patents in private aquifers. Biotechnica's algae-based fuel, once marketed as green alternative, became the only energy source left. Petrochem monopolized transport. Entire regions bartered loyalty for fuel shipments. Refugees, millions of them, took to the highways. When borders closed, they became the first nomad nations, trading labor and protection for access to convoys. Out in the dust, humanity reorganized itself around motion instead of territory. The firestorm burned only until the market said stop. By 2025, Militech shareholders demanded stabilization. The company announced a strategic partnership with the United States of America, effectively nationalization by merger. Arasaka fractured into rival dynasties, each sold intelligence to the highest bidder to finance reconstruction. Contracts flowed faster than relief aid. Private builders replaced city councils. Streets were repaired where investors lived. Everywhere else, the ruins remained, fenced and branded with corporate logos promising future redevelopment. Public memory shortened. By the time calm stabilized, advertising had rewritten the narrative. The corporations had saved civilization from chaos of their own making. Surveillance bloomed in the vacuum left by law. Citizens authenticated every purchase with biometric tags. Work assignments arrived via algorithmic assignment. Loyalty programs replaced welfare. The rhetoric was efficiency. The reality was containment. You can call it the aftermath of the firestorm, or you can open your phone right now. The same logic applies. Convenience as leash, security as rent. The armies just changed their dress code and the guns became keyboards. The uniforms became hoodies, but the data still reports upward. Currency splintered, the eurodollar collapsed, replaced by localized corporate script. People were paid in what they could spend only inside the systems that issued it. Biotechnica credits, petrochem chits, Militech marks. The term universal basic income re-entered policy discussions, but what arrived was different, a guaranteed minimum subscription. Nomads hauled goods between enclaves, fixers brokered talent, the edge runners who survived the wars became both legend and infrastructure. There were the couriers, the private eyes, the repairmen of civilization. The same freelancers who once fought for paychecks now kept the world stitched together for the price of one more job. It's tempting to imagine the firestorm is singular, but the pattern predates it. Whenever empire gives way to enterprise, the explosions simply change medium. Bombs to markets, radiation to information. The 20th century tested atomic fire, the 21st tested data fire. Both left fallout measured in generations. In old footage of Hiroshima, men swept glass from streets glowing from invisible poison. In footage from Night City, drones vacuumed particulate ash while advertisements promised rebirth through innovation. The choreography is identical, only the lighting is different. By 2026, the dust began to settle, literally and politically. The skies remained copper, but crops adapted. Cities walled themselves off, trading autonomy for safety. The word nation lost, meaning the word franchise replaced it. Militech governed the American interior through defense contracts. Arasaka's heirs reestablished themselves as security cooperative in Asia. Eurocorps formed the Stability Accord, a cartel of finance masquerading as government. The surviving free states became shipping ports for whoever could pay. The public accepted it. After years of collapse, predictability felt like peace, and the corporations learned the final lesson of war. Rule doesn't require belief, only fatigue. By every measurable index, humanity recovered. Communications resumed, economies grew, new towers rose atop the fused glass of the old. But beneath the metrics, the species had changed. No one trusted memory anymore. No one expected freedom to be free. Governments persisted as brands, promising safety as a service. The corporations they served no longer needed conquest. They owned the infrastructure of reality itself. Dun dun dun!
Do.
So, I mean, I'm sure after listening to that, we all feel so much better. We don't live in a world where things like that could happen.
I want to go hug a puppy.
Well, if you pay $15.99 a month, you can subscribe to Hug a Puppy, and yeah, you'll get a facsimile of a puppy that you can hug whenever you want on one day a week for about half an hour.
Yeah, this was a bright and shiny exploration that we discovered.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, hey, like I feel too that Cyberpunk is a very interesting setting to explore because it's so grounded in a prediction of the future that
I want to play a game in the Cyberpunk world. I don't want to exist in it.
Exactly. Like it should be a lesson in, hey, if something in our world is heading in this direction, that's a sign that the artists and the writers have shown you a dark path forward and you should hop off that.
But the foresight of it, because so much of this was written 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. That's the job of the writer, right? Like to, especially science fiction writers, to like show you the things that could go wrong, to try to predict them and to try to say, hey, this is why we shouldn't do those things. This is why we have to be more careful. And
if only anybody would listen.
Yeah, well, it's the problem is that when everybody in the room listens, then you avoid it. But even if 90% of the people listen, when 10% of the people don't, and then they succeed because they don't.
Yeah.
That's when Cyberpunk becomes reality. You know? So it's like, hey, guess what? The only way you're going to get 2 cookies is by lighting a fire and killing everybody. It's like, oh, I want 2 cookies.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not, no, should have waited, should have just had your 1 cookie. But like, oh, well, I didn't really think it happened.
A lot of it is too. It's just like you can have 2 cookies. You can have one now, and then as time goes by, you'll get a second one. Or you can have 2 right now and make it so you never have a cookie again.
Yeah. Hold them.
I'd rather have those 2 cookies right now.
Yeah. Anyway, everybody, I hope you're as happy and as cheerful. I hope you're doing good.
Yeah.
I hope you're walking around outside in the fall and going, you know what? What's happening in that video game or that TTRPG that's not what's happening in the real world. I hope you're loving your family, enjoying your life, and
then I hope you wake up and realize that it is absolutely what's happening right now.
I hope you remember that when you need to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the rest of the time, you live a happy and fulfilling life.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.